I'm excited about our next guest. There are certain people that you meet in life that change you. Change your outlook on life, either for the better or for the worse. This guy changes you for the better. The people that know this guy know that when he enters a room, the dynamic of the room changes immediately. He has such talent and a magnetic personality as well. People are just drawn to this guy, and for good reason, because he played in the NFL for 14 years. He's a finalist on America's Got Talent. He's a regular on Ellen's show. He's an author of an outstanding book called Life is Magic. He's a world-class speaker on Fortune 500 stages. He shares his inspiring journey from tragedy to self-discovery. I'm sure his most prized accomplishment is his beautiful family, which includes his wife, Annalise, and his daughter, Amaya Love. I'm so excited to have Jon Dorenbos on here today. He was my snapper for the Eagles for many years, my teammate, friend, and all-around inspiring person. He has an extraordinary and empowering story of resilience, forgiveness, and a life of purpose that he's been able to face unfathomable obstacles and come out positive on the other side. So I'm pumped to have Johnny D on here today, who I like to call Dorney. So let's kick it with Jon Dorenbos. But hey, brother, just want to welcome you to this new kind of project that we're doing around the Akers household. It's a family effort here, but we call it Kicking It with David Akers, and awesome to have you here with us. But bro, I think the last time we were together, it was about a year ago. It was my birthday. We had just come from the Eagles game. We were at the Marriott, actually the Courtyard by Marriott in Philly. It was you, me, and Donnie Longball Jones. And of course, you know, the type of person you are, you just said, oh, it's your birthday. Well, we got to have some birthday cake. So we started looking for, I think you had a couple beers. We had some Snickers ice cream bars and stuff. And we were killing that stuff about, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning. But it was great to see you guys then in person, now obviously virtually. And man, a lot has happened in the last year. And we'll get into that as we go further, kind of what you are doing now and how kind of COVID has changed your current situation. But I want to talk about, first off, we know that you're a fascinating person, and I talk about that to people all the time, just how you inspire so many. But I want to kind of take back to a day when you're 12 years old and everything that was normal in your life, everything you were living, just completely changed. And if you could take us back to that tragedy that you kind of started off with when you were 12 years old and kind of how it turned into the person you are today.
Yeah. So look, I lived a normal life, and my two favorite people were my mom and my dad. And my dad played catch with me every day, president of the league, coached my teams. And, you know, when I was 12, I was kind of at the age where I was like, yeah, you know, I'm hanging with my dad. He showed me how to change the tire and all that good stuff. my mom volunteered at the school, and she actually started a reading program. Reading comprehension for me my whole life has been really hard. And when I was in elementary school, I really struggled. And so my mom helped this reading program make reading a little bit more visual, and it gave kids like me different ways to learn. And so, all the cool kids like my mom, so the cool kids started to like me. So when I was 12 years old, I went home, and out of absolutely nowhere, my dad murdered my mom. I went home shortly after it happened. My dad turned himself in. He was sentenced to 13 years. So he was tried for second-degree murder, sentenced to 13 years. My sister and I then lived in a temporary foster home for about 8 months, 9 months. We went through the most intense therapy you could possibly imagine. And then my aunt, who's my mom's sister, she took my sister and I in, and we moved down to Southern California. And there I was raised by my aunt, my grandparents.
Brother, the first time I heard that, we were together in Philly, and I was kind of blown away. Obviously, I didn't know your story. But the literally the first day that we met, you started showing me all this magic that you could do. And obviously that's something you do, but you're magical in your own right. And I believe that's shortly after all that went down. And I mean, I can't even imagine what you went through. And I know just by talking to you over the years, the amount of therapy that you went through and the intensity of that therapy. But you found something that changed your life within that tragedy, and it was magic. Can you kind of give us a little bit of a background of how that kind of came about?
Yeah, so I go down to Southern California, and then shortly after, I turned around and went right back up to Woodinville, Washington, which is just north of Seattle. And I stayed with the Little League coach because I made like the Little League All-Star team. And so my family wanted me to be able to play in it. So I flew back and I stayed with him. Two doors down was one of his son's friend named Michael Groves, who was a 16-year-old magician. And so sure enough, he came over, he did a show, and it was the first time I ever saw magic. So what happened is he would actually set the camera up. Well, he did. He set the camera up, put the VHS tape, and like Dave, we didn't have iPhones and all that. So accessibility was a whole different ballgame, right? So he actually got the camera, ran the extension cord, put the VHS tape, and filmed it. So, to have the footage of me seeing magic for the first time, and then this kid and coach took me down to Seattle, and we went to a magic shop. They got me my first trick, and I was hooked. And for me, it was the idea of being in search of the perfect rep. It was the idea of something being really, really hard and constantly working and doing the exact same thing and getting really good at it. I was obsessed with that. And I didn't realize this till I was older, but what magic was for me was the escape that the outside world just quieted. It was the only time that I remember that when I would sit there and shuffle, I was just a kid. I didn't think about losing both my parents. I didn't think about moving. I didn't think about the therapy. I didn't think about all these adult things that I was going through. I would sit at a table, and believe it or not, it was this sound right here, right? It was just this right here. The cards riffling and bridging and shuffling. That sound to me was therapeutic.
It's therapeutic just to listen to you right now, Jon, to be honest. The things that, again, a 12-year-old should not go what you went through at all. Just, it shouldn't happen. And I think, again, when we start kind of dive into this, there are so many areas of your life that you are able to network out and change people's lives. I've seen it personally. You've touched not only my family, but countless other people. And there's some other stories I want to get into, but you brought up a thing within the sports with baseball. And correct me if I'm wrong, but baseball was like your number one love, correct, for sports? Not long snapping?
I was Ken Griffey Jr. and Jay Buhner when I was like 12, 13 years old. Okay.
Of course you were.
Especially playing wiffle ball. So, take that as you will.
And I've seen some of those baseball moments show up in the locker room. Whether you were making tape balls and bringing in the bats and throwing against the Sean.
Hold on. Were you there when I made the tape ball that was like
Absolutely.
30 pounds? And then I won't say his name, but somebody like spun it and got mad and put it through the wall in the locker room. And then it was confiscated. In fact, all my tape weapons I had a bow staff. I had a nunchucks. I had a huge tape ball. It was nothing but tape. It was this big, and the thing weighed like 30 pounds. Then I braided like a swinging thing, and then the braid went around it, and then I taped that so I could swing it like a ball and chain.
But it was similar.
I totally forgot about that.
Similar to like a Dwight Schrute setup, to be honest with you. But it was funny because we take the laundry baskets and flip them sideways, and that was your backstop when you're pitching or playing a bat. So those are just the memories that keep coming back to me about just the fun times we had together. But so baseball was kind of your deal, but you kind of got into football, and you ended up going to a junior college. Now, I just went through recruiting with my son, and I remember kind of going through recruiting when I was in high school, to the point that when you actually went on to play collegiately in Division I at UTEP, your head coach was my offensive coordinator. It was Gary Nord. But can you tell the people, when they think about recruiting, how, the algorithms of how you get picked up in today's Twitter world, but how did it work for you?
Okay. First, we're going to go back to my freshman year in high school. I get to high school. My buddy Kevin Johansson. Yeah, I was a big kid. I really was. I grew early, and so my buddy Kevin goes, "Yo, Jon, you should play football, dude. I think you do really well." And I looked at him. I go, "No way, dude. Football's for dorks. I like magic." And then he looked at me and he goes, "No, but you can hit that guy and not get in trouble." Well, that sounds like a pretty good idea. And so sure enough, that's kind of how I got into it. Is he literally said you can hit that guy and not get in trouble. I didn't even know the positions. Like, he had to explain, like, this is a tackle, that's a guard. I didn't even know what it was. Okay, you ready for this, Dave? This actually might not shock you. Led the league in tackles my senior year. I was a good linebacker, dude. I was like 6 foot, 225. I could run with anybody. And so I didn't know what a pulling guard was until I went to Golden West Junior College. Okay, they were 0. So look, I wanted to play D1, right? Here it is.
Who doesn't?
So now I have a chance to play football or baseball. All right, a buddy of mine, Bobby Crosby, he ended up being Rookie of the Year. He goes to Long Beach State. I had some opportunity, and it was too slow, right? The days were too slow. And I kid you not, my sole purpose for wanting to play Division I football, I kid you not, I wanted to run out of a tunnel in front of 100,000 people. I just thought it'd be cool. Like, I wanted to be a rock star, right? Can't sing, can't dance, can't play an instrument. So, kind of tough. But I wanted the rock star energy. And so I went to I didn't get any offers, right? Shocker. So I went to Golden West Junior College. They were 0-30 at the time, which means they hadn't won a game in 3 years, right? Don't worry. I went there. We lost another 10, 0-40. Part of the longest losing streak in college football history. It is what it is, a record nonetheless. So, but here's what happens, right? I play. And then there was a moment where we only had like 23 guys, right? And so if anybody got hurt, we literally couldn't play a game. And so we would practice to Coach Hay and Coach Rowe clapping, and we could step to their paces, right? It was then that he said, "Dorenbos, here comes the pulling guard," that I actually saw it happen. And after all those years, I was like, oh, that's a pulling guard. Got it, right? I just always went to the ball when I was younger. All right, so end of the year, I played really well. No offers. I'm like, what the heck? So my buddy Paul Tessier, who I played high school with, who went to the same junior college, he's at UTEP. They need a long snapper. Now, in my senior year in high school, I did it because I was the only guy that could do it, right? I could look between my legs and get it back there. I had a knack for it, but I hadn't done it in about a year and a half. And so he's like, "Yo, Dorenbos, you can snap, right?" I'm like, "Can I snap?" "Yeah, dude, totally. Dude, I got this." So what do? I go get Tim Thurman. Now, Tim Thurman is a 6'6" long snapper at our junior college who is better than I ever was. So I'm putting my highlight tape together. It's me as a defensive end, a fullback, and a linebacker, and it's good. I make a lot of open field tackles. I was a very disciplined player, but I didn't have any footage of me snapping at that level. So I just kind of borrowed some of Tim's and just threw it on there. Now, back then, there was no HD. There was no internet. Like, we didn't have any of that stuff, right? But then I was like, gosh, there's really no like big hits. Ooh. Nick Heinley, number 47. I was 48. We played the same position, both 6 foot white guys. And he prided himself. The harder he hit you, if he knocked himself out, he loved it. So he had huge hits. So I put some of his big hits on there, right? Okay. So now UTEP gets the film. They call in Tessier, and they're like, "Yo, Tessier, Dorenbos, you're friends. You guys went to the same schools. What do you think?" He's like, "Yeah, that dude, totally." So now, meanwhile, Paul looks at the tape, and he's like, "He played with Tim. He played with Nick." So he's like, "Interesting. Don't worry about it. Get me in the door." So UTEP, I was kind of in the era, right, where long snappers started to get scholarships, and it was becoming a full-time job. Yep. And so sure enough, UTEP offered me a full ride. And it was then that I really was like, okay, now I got to figure this out, because they think I'm as good as Tim. And I don't think I ever was in my entire career. And so that's kind of how I became a long snapper full-time.
Well,
now
obviously,
okay. Now hold on. I'm not encouraging kids to lie, but I just needed opportunity. I knew I could do it. I just needed the opportunity. And so I just created opportunity.
Look, I see this all the time with these kickers that say, hey, my kid's really good. And they go out into a hurricane and hit a 60-yard field goal. And they say, see, he's consistent from 60. No different. It's still done today, Jon. It's all good. So you're at UTEP and you're starting school, right? And you told me that UTEP was, especially on your first day, was a little bit more difficult than you imagined. Can you go into that?
Well, there's a couple different aspects why. One, well, are you talking about academically or the football?
Just how your first day was academically.
Yeah, so I show up and I go to a history class, right? And the whole thing's in Spanish. And I'm like, this is interesting. A lot of Spanish, okay, which I know it's on the border. So I was, okay, I'm cool. I went to another class, a lot of Spanish. So I'm going, okay, this is going to be a lot more difficult than I anticipated. I don't know how my buddy Paul's doing this because he doesn't, last I heard, he doesn't speak Spanish. I go to another class, a lot of Spanish being spoken. So I'm like, this is not good, right? So I go to the minor, it was called the MAC, the Minor Athlete Academic Center. And I was like, yo, I might kind of really struggle this year academically. I think I need a tutor. And I had good grades. Like I was academically qualified. I was an A/B student. You know, I'm a pretty intelligent guy, I would like to think. And they're like, really? Like, I'm like, I don't speak Spanish. Like, I don't, how am I going to do this? And I was enrolled in some Spanish classes. I guess there's a mistake in the system. And they're like, oh, no. Yeah, you're good. We're going to put you in the English American side. I'm like, well, that would have been nice to know.
That would have been good.
I think I'm good to go now. Like when I rolled up there, I drove from California to UTEP, and I'll never forget, dude. You take the 10 freeway basically the whole way. You go through Phoenix, Tucson, and then you get into El Paso. And back then, again, we didn't have like, you know, iPods and iPhones and like satellite radio. We had, you know, DVD or CD players that were in the back of your car, or we had the radio. So I had the radio playing, and all of a sudden it kind of like, you know, the radio station's like, and then it goes from like playing like rock and roll to Sábado, Sábado, Sábado. Jugado Fútbol Americano con Sun Bowl. And I was like, whoa, let's do this.
Now, wasn't your dorm like right on the border of Mexico?
Yeah, so I actually went in as a true sophomore, right? And I was like, yeah, I don't really feel like living in dorms, which I should have, you know, but I wanted my own place. So I got an apartment and I lived on the Rio Grande. Now, look, as a kid growing up in Southern California, the Rio Grande, luscious river. I mean, I'm talking like we can boat down this thing, let, you know, go water skiing, slalom, solemn or slalom?
Slalom.
Slalom. We'll go slalom skiing. It's going to be amazing, right? There's like casitas on the water. So I get there and now I have an apartment that overlooks the Rio Grande, and I realize it's basically a dirt ditch that's about 10 feet wide. And it was a little bit underwhelming. So I couldn't really tell people I had water.
But they sold it as like, hey, you got views of the Rio Grande, you know, this apartment.
When you're in elementary school, you know, the Rio Grande, it's just in your head, like you'd see the maps and there'd be like this blue line, right?
Sure.
And it would be a thick blue line. So that means water. So when you get there, I'm like, it was almost like a Robin Hood Men in Tights when Hutch's like, guys, relax. You can just jump across. Oh.
Yeah. So at what point when you were in your college career, did you think I might have a shot of taking this to the next level and playing the NFL?
All right, so it was my senior year, and basically what happened is we had a guy named Brian Nacken who was an All-American tight end, and he's like, yo, man, you could snap. So he went and played for the Tennessee Titans, came back. He's like, dude, I really think you could snap in the NFL, really. So then a coach came up to me and said, hey, you probably have a shot. Like, you know, coach, you know, some teams are calling and you're getting looks. So here's the deal. This was the kicker for me, okay? And Dave, you know me, so you're like, this is right up Dorenbos's alley. My motto was basically little to no cardio. Right? Let's appear busy, but never actually be busy, you know? And so all of a sudden the coach was like, hey, Dorenbos, you have a shot to be a long snapper. So I think you should really focus on it. And I was like, cool. Like, what does that mean? He's like, well, I mean, as a linebacker, you know, you get in there, but you know, you're not starting. So like, I would say I wouldn't be a linebacker or fullback anymore. I would just stick to snapping. I go, okay, so what does that mean? He goes, well, I don't really know if you have, why do you have to go to those meetings? Hold on. Less meetings, less chance of getting hurt, and I go pro? Yeah, coach, let's try that. I think that's a good game plan. Let's go ahead and do that. And so sure enough, that's kind of how it happened. And then, but here's the real story. Okay. I ended up getting a really bad groin injury in college, and nobody knows what it is. Doctors are coming in. And so I remember laying down on a table, and there's a tendon that runs through your groin. If you kind of go between your thigh and your boys, or if you're a woman, whatever, and you just kind of push there. It feels like there's a bone that goes, that's a tendon. And so the doctor was injecting that tendon, and there was a surgeon there. And I'm like, why is this guy here? And they're like, oh, well, if we hit your bowel line and it ruptures, you got to go into surgery. Huh? Okay. Yeah, this seems like a great idea. Let's do it. So we're injecting that tendon, super painful. Lo and behold, I had a bilateral inguinal hernia, which means I had two hernias, but the swelling was so bad that it's commonly misdiagnosed for a while. So why is this important? The season's over, and now it's the pro day. I'm not making this up. I couldn't even do a fast walk. That's how bad it hurt, right? And then I injected it before the pro day. The scouts come, I get 10 snaps, and I have to run a 40, okay? Fitzpatrick, he was the head scout that ran all the pro days for Minnesota. I'll never forget this. I get down to run my 40, okay? And there's all the scouts. They're all there to see me snap, right? So I'm like, okay, let's just do this, run. This is going to really, really hurt. In my mind, I'm going to run an 8:40, and it's going to look terrible because my groin hurts so bad. Mm-hmm. But let's just do it. And all of a sudden, Fitzpatrick gets on the megaphone. He goes, Dorenbos, stand up. Stand up. You are not fast, nor do any of us care about your speed. Go warm up. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Sherman Austin was our running back, and he's in that leotard, the onesie thing, He just looked at me and goes, are you serious right now? You are so lucky. I was like, hey, man, it is what it is, man. So I go over. I was like Ricky Vaughn. I could snap some serious heat. Didn't know where it was going, but I could throw it back there pretty fast when I first started. And so sure enough, I had like the snapping day of my life. I threw 9 out of 10 strikes. They were bullets. And the rest is history. So there it is.
So
actually, no, the rest isn't history, man. The rest is not history. Houston, they're all about it, dude. I think his name was Chuck Bank at the time. I forgot. The president comes out. Marciano comes out. They're going to draft me in the 5th. What? You guys are going to draft me in the 5th? I get a phone call the day of the draft. Are you excited to be a Houston Texan? Yeah, I am. And in the 5th round, the Houston Texans picked not Jon Dorenbos. Wah, wah. Never heard from him ever again. And then I had a couple teams call him, and I ended up going to the Buffalo Bills in free agency.
That's very similar to what happened to me with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I got a call in the 7th round and said, hey, looks like you're going to be our next pick. And I'm like, oh my gosh, here it is, right? And I'm waiting to see my name go across the ticker, right? And then, nope, they picked a kick returner, not a kicker. Yeah. So free agency, same way I made it. So you go to Buffalo and you spend a little time there. You spend some time with the Titans. And in 2006, you're midway through the season, you're unemployed at the moment. And my snapper at the time was Mike Bartram. He ends up getting a neck injury. They bring you in. And basically at that point with the Eagles, you became a focal point of the town, to be honest. Not a lot of people talk about kickers, and I got a ton of love in Philly. And nobody really talks about long snappers unless you screw up. And yet you were kind of the go-to. You could see that 46 jersey in the stands. And it's because of who you are and how you connected with Philly, in my opinion. And so as I kind of think about you bouncing around from those different teams, what do you think made it for you, or what changed with your abilities or just with the circumstances that Philly became such a mainstay for you?
Well, the real story is how I got to Philly. That's a great story. So Bob Stoll was the athletic director at University of Texas, El Paso, when I played there. But Bob Stoll was also the guy that gave Andy Reid his first big college coaching job. Bob Stoll was also the guy that Andy Reid coached under at University of Texas, El Paso. And so when Bartram got hurt and I was on the street, Bob Stoll, after it'd been years and years and years, called Andy Reid and said, hey, you need a long snapper? There's a kid, Jon Dorenbos. Yeah, he bounced around a little bit. He's on the street. That's your guy. So here's what happens. I get to Philly. Now I'm working out with a guy named, there's 3 snappers there. It's myself, John Kondo, and Adam Johnson. John Kondo ended up being a multi-Pro Bowl snapper for the Raiders for a long time. And Adam Johnson was the snapper at University of Buffalo when I was there. And I'd kind of help him out, right? Why? I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was the pro and whatever. I would help this kid out. I specifically remember saying to myself, there is no way you can lose to your protege. You can't do it, right? You can't do it, right? So I snap. I really think that it was my job or John Kondo's. He's a great player. And as I was kind of walking, Harbaugh's kind of walking, and Andy Reid came out, right? He didn't really look at me. He's got his little pen, and he's looking straight ahead. Now I'm over here, but he's looking straight ahead. And then all of a sudden I get this, and his eyes just move, right? He goes, Bob Stoll called, said, "You're my guy." I go, "Really? What does that mean?" He goes, "Welcome to the Philadelphia Eagles." He goes, "I'll make this real simple." And he still hasn't turned his head. He just kind of like looks, right? He's flicking his little pen. He goes, "Do what you want. You want to run, run. You want to lift, lift. If it's not there on Sunday, you're fired. Coach, I think you and I are going to get along. Let's do this." And so that's kind of how I became the snapper of the Eagles, is because of Bob Stoll, kind of the reference, which goes back to a point that if there's anybody watching this, you never know. Like, I truly believe this. You never know. So people ask me, Jon, how do you have success in multiple different aspects of your life? It's very simple. It is very, very simple. Show up on time, prepared, ready to work, and give it everything you got. And just watch what happens. And if you do that every single day, you'll be the last man, the last woman standing. If you just stay on your path, watch how many people jump off, because consistency is hard. Show up every day and put yourself in a position to be successful. And at UTEP, that's all I did. I showed up every day. I was never the best. Even in the pros, I was never the best, but I know this. I showed up every day, and I constantly tried to improve. And, I learned this, that if you can be a person that creates a culture around you that people want to be around, well, then it's harder to get rid of you. And Coach Hay was my favorite coach in junior college. He passed away years ago, and I was part of the group of people that gave a eulogy. And sure enough, I kind of gave the same speech he gave us. And he basically said, "Hey, why do we got the names on the back of our jersey?" So when I was at JUCO, remember, we were 0-40, right? "Coach, I got this, dude. There's a lot of people out here. You don't know who's who." So the names are on our jersey, because you're going to walk and you got your little clipboard, and then you're going to go behind me, Dorenbos. You're going to write it down. You're going to take about 10 steps. You're going to sit there. You're going to twiddle your thumbs, give it a beat, so I don't associate you looking at my name. Then you're going to turn around and be like, "Hey, Dorenbos, come over here." I then think you know my name. I then am going to try harder. I'll never forget. He goes, "That's the dumbest answer I've ever heard. Sit down." Dang it. And that's what he said. I'll never forget this. Dude, everything that happens in the white lines of the game is going to happen in this world, right? Every one of us is going to be face down. Every one of us is going to face a bad call. And every one of us is going to we're just going to get ran over. So that's something everybody can relate to. But when you stand up, there's the difference right there. The decision you make in that moment, right? Live in vision, live in circumstance. So all of a sudden, I realized that my name means something. And I realized people are always watching. And I realized that the decision that we make when we're down, that's what separates us. And so my whole career, I just tried to be a person that no matter what, I would stand up. No matter what, I took pride in my name. No matter what, I would be on time, prepared, ready to work, and on time. And what I found is that when people want to be around you, they pick you up. When people want to be around you, they actually lead you to success, because they want to see it happen to you. And sure enough, you do that to the same. When you're around people that you want to be around, you do things for them. You help them because you want to see that person succeed. So be that person. And for me, not to ramble here, but when I first got to Philly, I did an interview and they asked me what my goal was. And I actually got a laugh from the media. And I said, "Well, my goal is to be the oldest guy in the team." And they're like, "What?" I mean, yeah. Oh, okay. Most people would say like money, Pro Bowl, Super Bowl, No, I want to be the oldest guy in the team. And they're like, "Why?" Well, if I say Super Bowl, what happens when I win it next year and I never play again? I don't really want that. Like, I want to be the oldest guy in the team. But to me, the oldest guy in the team, it symbolized more than just that. It symbolized that you showed up every day. You were a true pro. Guess what? And at the end of your career, the owner, the guy that's writing your check, is going to look at you and say, "Hey, you might have not been the best, but there's nobody here I'd rather have for the last however many years than you." And if you're the oldest guy in the team, it's the ultimate sign of respect. And so that was my goal. I would like to proudly report to the Kickin' It with David Akers podcast, and to tell you all that I was the oldest guy in the Philadelphia Eagles. I was the oldest guy in the Philadelphia Eagles for about 12 days. And then we signed Donnie Jones, and he was 2 weeks older than me. And I wanted to punch him right in the face for
that. So I just wanted to let you kind of go with what you were saying there, because a lot of people talk about these guys, they're just really talented at what they do. And there are a few of those people. But ultimately, what I believe on the guys that played in the NFL, the people that maintain the ability to play for long periods of time, to be the old heads in the room, if you will, it goes back to what you're talking about, the consistency, to understand when you have adversity, no matter on the field or in life in general, how do you work through and persevere through those different adversities. And I think you're right, though, Jon, in the fact that if you show that on a daily basis, it becomes contagious. And you did that. It's kind of like a moth to a flame. And again, your head's big enough to sit right there, but probably not to get out of your studio at the moment, because I'm trying to pump you up here a little bit more. Because to me, when I saw you come in, yeah, you were a good snapper, but there was just something different about you when you come into the room. And I remember it was a night before a game, and we generally stayed at the Marriott there in Philly, but there was something going on. There was a women's convention, I believe, there, and we couldn't use the actual ballroom, so we ate our pregame and the night before snack and had the meetings all at the facility at the NovaCare. And the coaches were all around, and at the time, our defensive coordinator, Jim Johnson, was there. And Jim, so these people know, Jim was the surly guy. He was tough as nails, and to me, is a guy that actually gave me one of my big breaks, because Jim was in my corner along with John Harbaugh and Andy Reid about my first year when I was just a kickoff guy and a long field goal specialist. So Jim would, the few words he would say was usually in a gravelly, cursing way.
Excuse me. This took me a second to digest. Did you just go from being a kicker to a self-labeled what did you just call yourself? A long-range field goal specialist?
Well, that's what I was that first year. I was a tinker toy in Andy's terms that year in 1999.
But then you also then referred to yourself as a
kickoff
long-range field goal specialist. What?
Kickoff specialist and long field goal kicker.
Because they had
long field goal kicker. I've never heard that. I've just heard, I'm a kicker. I'm a field goal kicker. I've never heard, look, guys, I only do long range stuff. Okay, that little petty stuff, that little PAT stuff, it ain't for me. Back it up. Back it up.
We'll leave that for Mark Semino.
All right, Jim Johnson.
So I come into the room, and you're holding court there, right? And Jim Johnson's right in front of you, and you're about to blow his mind. Do you remember that day?
Well, yeah, it was kind of like and I love Jim. I got nothing but respect for Jim, but I remember I was the new guy. You got to prove yourself. And it was kind of like Andy Reid, and everybody's like, yo, show Jim a trick. And it's kind of like okay, here we go, kid. Let me guess. I'm going to pick a card. You're going to find it. Oh, it's like the Wedding Crashers. Make me a bicycle clown. You know what I mean? So I kind of went in with him just kind of like being like, all right, I got stuff to do. You could tell he was thinking about the game, and there was a lot on his mind. And to me, that's the moment I strive in. It's the person that just needs a break, right? It's the person that you can just give an escape to, that can just unwind for a few seconds. That's what magic is, man. So you can continue the story, because this gets good.
So I remember you start fiddling, and before I know it, his mind's blown, because you're holding his watch. You stole his watch off of his wrist with him not even realizing it, and he could not believe it. He was completely dumbfounded, and honestly, I had never seen Jim like that, as that side of him, because he was always so focused in and being the ball coach that he is. And to me, I thought that was hysterical, and all the other coaches just were dying laughing.
I definitely don't think he was expecting that. And for me, what was cool about that moment is, for me, people had heard stories, and then you never really know what's true. And then all of a sudden the legend proceeds, oh my gosh, Dorenbos did this. And like, did he really? And so everybody was like, yo, you got to steal a watch. You got to take something. I heard you can steal watches. And I hadn't really done it, because I like to wait for the right opportunity, right? Where it's going to leave an impression, right? Because once you do it once, then people know what to look for. So you got to go into the punch. So that was it. That was the moment that I was like, okay, here we go, guys. I'm going to shut every one of you up right now. And I'm glad it worked, because every once in a while you get caught.
But that was just awesome, I thought. And, that just kind of takes me down memory lane. And so we're going to go through a few little things down our memory lanes with Johnny D, or who I like to call Dorney, right? But do you remember playing in Dallas? And it might have been Christmas Day that we were playing. And we started off with a field goal. Now, you would always sit at the end of the bench on a Gatorade cooler, and then right near the net, where at that time it either was Savrock, I believe, was there as our punter. And I was like, oh, man, thank goodness we got that one in. And you're like, man, it's always great to start off with a PAT. And that just is you to a T, because you're focused by not being focused, as you said before at times. And to me, I was like, I was nervous. I was ready to, to do well. And the fact that my long snapper, everything starts with you, and you had no clue where we were on the field. It was like a 43, 44-yard field goal, and yet you thought we were hitting an extra point right in the end zone. And I'm like, okay, well, there's Jon for you. But, you and I, you said earlier, you don't like to run. You don't like to do a lot of the extra things to better your physique, which I completely disagree.
Well, I do. I just, you know what? Okay, here's the difference. And this is where Andy Reid and I got along, right? Because I had a trainer guy. I went into training camp, lean and mean, ready to go. I just like to do my stuff. I've never liked to work out in big groups. I don't like to it has nothing to do with me not wanting to be a team player. I just like to be by myself when I work out and when I run and when I do stuff. And it's,
But sometimes you weren't by yourself. Sometimes you weren't. And we would you and I kind of transformed our bodies.
Stop. Let me break this down, dude. Dave gets all hardcore into P90X, okay? If you guys don't remember it, Tony Horton, great guy. Dave's into P90X, but what ended up happening is you went away for an off season. You came back probably in the best shape of your life. True or false?
Pretty true, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and he is just crushing this P90X. So what happens? Rick Burkholder, head trainer, P90X. So now I'm like, all right, yeah, let's give this thing a shot, right? So we're shadow boxing. I'm like, yeah, this is cool. Heart rate's going. All right, so now I believe, I might be wrong, but I believe we went to San Fran for a game. Was it San Fran?
I think it was either San Fran or Arizona.
All right, and so like on a Saturday, so one week on a Saturday, we're going to do this. And what a mistake, because my calves were killing me the next day on Sunday for the game. But all right, so now we go to San Fran, and Dave's like, yeah, come to my room. Let's do some P90, just get the blood going. Let's just wake up, And I'm like, cool, yeah, no problem.
Little P90 yoga.
Am I telling the story, or are you?
Yeah, no, I was just saying it was P90 yoga.
P90 yoga. Okay, yeah, P90 yoga. So I walk into Dave's room, and there he is, right? He's in his underwear. All right, whatever, dude. He probably just got out of the shower. Okay, so then I'm like, okay, we move the mattress, we're just going to do like a yoga stretch and just kind of like work our joints out and just kind of wake up. Well, Dave then starts proceeding doing yoga in his underwear. And I was like, hey, Dave, it's all good. I'm just wondering, maybe throw some shorts on, He's like, oh, I forgot them. What do you mean you forgot them? He's like, yeah, I just forgot them. I'm like, okay, so here's what we're going to do. This is what's not going to happen is Dom or somebody, coach or whatever is not going to open that door and see us doing yoga in your underwear. That's not going to happen because one, we're already a long snapper kicker combo. Like we're already at the bottom of the chain here. So I think, and I might be wrong, but I don't know if I made this up, but do we lean the mattress against the door or something? So
I know we locked it.
This is good. I'm out.
I should have just been like, Dave, look, I'm going to go get some sausage and pancakes downstairs. Do your yoga in your underwear. I'll see you in a couple hours.
You had to bring up sausage after I'm there in my underwear?
Come on, dude. Come on, dude.
Seriously. So we did yoga in my underwear in Arizona, I believe. But I was able to play.
Just for everybody else to know, I had the proper attire. I'm a total short sleeve hoodie guy. I want to say that I was one of the first back in the day where I took sweatshirts and I cut them off short sleeve hoodie. I had shorts on and
you and Belichick.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Belichick might have beat me to it.
You're rocking that rock shirt right now. You look pretty good in it. So you played in two Pro Bowls as well. And one of them we got to do together. It was the 2009 season. And just so happens that it was in Miami, which I don't really understand why the NFL has taken the Pro Bowl out of Hawaii because it's just something special over there. I was fortunate enough to play in 6 of those. And then the one that I didn't get to play in, you were my long snapper and was down in Miami. And I don't know if you
hold on. Put yourself in my shoes. Dave, you went to Hawaii 5 times. Jon, you made the Pro Bowl. Yes, I'm going to Hawaii. Nah, it's the only time we're going to do it in Miami. Just as cool. Great.
You remember how cold and rainy that game was?
Miserable. And then I didn't realize nobody would scrub the K-ball, so they're super slick. I'm like, this is miserable, dude. How do you not? What's going on? Anyways, go ahead.
But you were able to accomplish as a long snapper to be able to play in 2 Pro Bowls, which is pretty amazing. So,
but this is the other great story about that, right? So I'm married terrible, divorced, awesome, happy. It was just the right thing to do. And I made the Pro Bowl that year out of my divorce, right? So I'm like, yes, I'm finally going to Hawaii. Oh no, John. It was like 4 or 5 years later. They're like, oh no, John, we're going to decide to bring it back to the States. We're going to do it in Arizona this year. Excuse me? You tell me the only 2 Pro Bowls that I made were the only 2 that weren't in Hawaii?
You're special, John, but this is the guy that fudged his recruiting tape to become a long snapper and now has been to 2 Pro Bowls. I mean, tell me you can't do things. So kind of back down that memory lane as well. Do you remember when we played Seattle Seahawks?
And I had the runs and a migraine that time?
Well, I was thinking of a different time. I was thinking of the time where we were warming up in pregame.
Oh, oh my God, I forgot about this. Oh, I remember that. It got away from me.
And so I know you're usually right on target with your snaps, but I was in my stance ready to kick. Sav goes set. He's ready for the ball, and I'm approaching thinking he's going to catch a ball, and I did. I caught a ball right in my balls. I didn't think I was going to be able to play. I did not think. I went in and saw the team doc, and I was like, oh my
Just
gosh.
to recap, hold on. Just to recap, Dave's like this, right? So hold on. Let me do my David Aker. Right? So Dave, so he's getting ready to kick. Now the spot's over there. I don't know what happened, but instead of the ball going to the holder, the ball just went straight to his boys, right? And just Dave was not expecting it. I wasn't expecting that. And dude, he went down for the count. Now, what's really bad is the initial reaction was, huh, huh. And then my next reaction was, oh my gosh, I just hit you in the nuts, man. Are you okay?
You were just dying laughing.
Oh, dude. I mean, Greg Delamitros, he was laughing. And they're like, what happened? I'm like, I don't know. All of a sudden, he just started crying. Like, I don't know what happened. I looked between my legs, coach. Next thing you know, he's crying. I mean, he just needs to toughen up a little bit. Sorry about that. Can you stand up?
I love you, Dorney. I love
you,
Dorney.
I felt really bad, but didn't you? Wasn't it like black and blue and like it was like
swell it up. Thank you.
Appreciate that, brother.
Oh, dude, that's so bad. That was a good one. Hey, it's been a long time, and I just want to tell you, my bad.
My bad. That's all good. So, again, love down the memory lane with you. But we basically had a daily ritual, if you will, of what we did for lunch. So the team was finishing up walkthrough. We would always hit lunch a little early, 11:15, and the Price is Right is on every day. Now, Steve Romas also had these incredible chocolate chip cookies, the way the Eagles had their meals for us. But, we worked so hard on our P90X and our other workouts that we could always have our daily chocolate chip cookie. And we would watch the Price is Right for years, watching the Price is Right. And those are just things that kind of come to my mind. And again, I have to say that probably my most, you have a question, sir?
Well, I'm going to let you finish, because if we're going to go to the same story, this is not choreographed. We're going to go to the same story. I'm going to laugh here.
Go ahead.
I never have seen you laugh harder than what is now considered to be the dumbest answer in Price is Right history. When there was a gentleman, and let's just call it this. It's a vacation, a Sea-Doo, a barbecue, a couple TVs, maybe a trailer for the Sea-Doo.
I remember.
And they were like, so what's your bid? And the guy goes, 260,000, Bob. And Bob goes, I'm sorry, how much? $260,000, Bob. And Bob goes, I don't really know what to say to that. There's actually not enough space on the ticker thing to actually have a number that big. Are you sure you don't want to? Do you want to rethink that? $225,000. And dude, we laughed so hard. And the bid was like 18 grand or whatever, it was like 22 grand, Bob's like, you're only off by $240,000,
The other person who does $1, like, I think I've got it somewhere.
The other lady's like, no, that's his guess, $260,000, $1, Bob, $1.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, so many good times. And speaking of great times, I have to say this. One of my prize victories in life, I mean, seriously, one of my most cherished moments was when we did a TV show that you were hosting at the time. and we had a snapping contest.
Yeah, I thought, what's funny is in my mind, it's a shoo-in. How can I make a 6-time Pro Bowler look bad, right? I'm going to challenge it to my own game. So here's what we do. If you Google it, you'll see it. It was like we just kind of put like just snapping, like trick shots, if you will, together on who's going to be a better snapper. Clearly, it's going to be this guy. Dave's pretty good. That's all I'm going to tell you guys. Dave's pretty good, and I got my butt kicked in my own game.
It was fun. It was fun to be able to do that, and
you had. I'm going to say this: if something had happened, I truly believe that you could have gone in a game and snapped the ball and gotten us through a punt.
Oh, I would have been able to after they changed the rule of not lining up over the top of you and absolutely
putting
you in the next week.
I'm going to tell you right now, that rule made it so much harder.
Why is that?
So it was good on field goals because they couldn't run you over. But let's be honest, this right here is head up, right? And as you and I both know, that's not head up. Head up, not head up. So we're only talking like a 6-inch difference. Well, for me, if you line up head up over me, that's more surface area. Yeah, like during punt. Oh, what are you going to run me over? Okay, I'll just do the Kendall Gammon and back roll, and then I'm out. But you're not going to block the kick. So what happened is when they said you can't line up over snappers, it went from bigger guys to now more athletic, faster guys trying to swim you and get by you. And believe it or not, it made the schemes and the punt block schemes and the way that they would attack the snapper and try and get the snapper out of position, it made it so much harder.
Well, I will say this, and as you got older, your snapping became more refined. You did a better job of recognizing what you needed to do as a protector on punt. I mean, you'll lose speed over time, obviously, on the cover, but your snapping and your protection, I think, actually really did improve, especially if you go from your first couple of years with the Eagles to when you finished up.
Well, by far, I actually thought I was pretty good I thought I was really good in protection. Some people might differ, but this is a funny story. Dude, this is a funny story, right? How life has a way of just telling you, hey, haha, chuckle, chuckle. All right, so I really felt that my best that I've ever snapped. So here's what happens, right? I go and I play 162 straight games as an Eagle. So I tied the record with the great Harold Carmichael. So now I go into the game that I tie, right? 11 years, never missed a game. Tie. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Jon Dorenbos tying the great Harold Carmichael. So I run out on the field like an idiot. Very next play, wrist blows, shatters. I dislocate the lunate, tore every ligament. Bad. I had 3 surgeries. And so I tied. That being said, 3 surgeries later, I don't know if you can see the scar, but it goes all the way down here. Here's what happens. This is my normal. And then that's this forever, right? So that. So my full range of motion is about that, right? But I come back to training camp the next year. I am putting it on a dime. Like I'm talking, I've never snapped like perfect spirals. These are perfect spirals. They are totally accurate. Donnie and everybody's looking at me like, what's going on? Because of this surgery, sometimes when you try and snap too hard, you over follow through. Well, my wrist now stops. Like there is no more follow through. So it was like the perfect follow through for me just to have a perfectly straight, tight spiral. Dude, the best I ever snapped is after 3 wrist surgeries. I'm opening a snapper camp. I'm just going to bash wrists. I'll see you guys in 12 months, and then let's go. And then they traded me, and I never played again.
I do want to get to that trade, but one last thing, and I see the picture behind you. That was over your left shoulder. So we bring back Coy Detmer to hold in a playoff game, and it happens to be the Giants. And you end up, after the kick, disappearing. I don't know where you go, but I see later on TV on the news that you kind of try the Lambeau leap into Lincoln Financial Stadium, and then they end up pulling you up into the stands. And then you told me that there was a little something before the game about this, and then you knew where some people were and you ran to them. Can you go into that one?
Yeah, so basically what happened is before that, so that was my first year with the Eagles, right? So it was kind of like Jeff Garcia and I got in together, and then we played, and then we won like 8 or 9 in a row. We go to the playoffs, like we turned around the team. And so now a buddy of mine, Paul Tessier, the guy from UTEP, right? The guy that got me UTEP. He's at the game and he's like, yo, man, this is sick. And I'm in the hotel shave because I lived at the Marriott for like 2 years. And so I'm shaving. He's like, dude, why are you shaving? Like, you never shave before a game. I was like, bro, come on, dude. After we snap a game-winning field goal, I got to look good for the cameras. He's like, dude, whatever, man. I'm in section 107. If you snap a game winner, jump in the crowd. I'm like, no problem, dude. So it's kind of one of those things that you forget, you know? And then all of a sudden, the scenario of the game's playing out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to kick a game winner. And Dave, this is what's funny, and you be spending so much time with me. I spent more time thinking about my run and jump into the crowd than I did the actual snap. And like the scenario of a game-winning field goal in Philadelphia, right? Such a hardcore sports town, to beat the Giants, which is like this huge rival, to continue on in the playoffs. None of that entered my mind. The only thing that entered my mind is, okay, how am I going to get around that rope? And then that guy's but here's the psychology of it, right? We already made it. In my head, we already made it. So now we're just going to go execute. And so all of a sudden we snap it. Coy puts it down. Akers kicks it through. Yeah. I noticed that section 107 is I'm facing it, right? We're going in there and it's right to the right of the tunnel, our tunnel.
So time out. Before the snap, you're figuring out where section 107 is.
Well, no, I was sitting on the bench.
Did
I knew. Yeah, I found 107 because I remember Paul saying he's in 107, and I started on the other side, and I'm looking. I'm like, where the heck is? No way. We're in that end zone, and it's right off of our tunnel. This is amazing. So then, this is what's funny. We get over the ball to snap a game-winning field goal in the playoffs, and I actually, instead of like probably thinking about what most people think I was thinking about, I looked over just to double check that was 107. I'm like, all right, good, Paul. I'll see you in a second. Yeah, and that's it right there.
See, that's the thing that I think is absolutely hysterical, and people don't believe. They're like, "Oh, you're always so focused in this." And I think what made you good, in all seriousness, is that you never took yourself too seriously. And the people that tried to make you something that you weren't didn't realize what they had and how good it was when you would just let Jon be you. We're like, well, that's just Dorney. That's just Dorney. That's just it. Go ahead.
I think, I had one or two over my career of coaches that just didn't really see eye to eye with me, which is okay. That's fine. You don't have to get along with everybody. But I think for me, what's important is that if I seemed like I was having fun or I was lackadaisical, by no means did that mean I didn't care. By no means does that mean I wasn't preparing. By no means does that mean I was not prepared, right? I took my job really seriously. But I took it seriously in a way that I just love being here. And I just want to be as good as I can be. And I'm going to give you what I got. And like you said, I'm not going to be what I'm not. Like I will say that every time I walked into a room, I've always walked in as me. I don't try to be anybody else. I just, I love people. I love hanging out. I love working with people. And so, if there was ever a time where coaches kind of thought that me having fun or joking or seeming like I'm not paying attention, really I was, but it was just the way I learn and the way I internalize pressure and the way I just remember, you know what it is? It's the way that I want to remember the situation. So this is true right here. 100% true. From the time I can remember, I always put myself in a position that I was like my own lead character in a movie. And I'm a total chick flick guy. Like I like the romance, the happy endings. I like the Adam Sandler movies. I don't watch like Saw and Hostel and these movies. I don't watch those. Mm-hmm. And so anytime something bad would happen in my life or anytime I would go into a situation, I already wrote the ending because I already knew where my movie was going. So for instance, that field goal, I had already jumped in the crowd. Like that was my ending. Like I am going to do that. Okay, well just go snap it and Dave, just make this so I can go do that. And I was more excited about that than the actual snap, right? Which takes the pressure off of it. And I truly believe that when life gets really hard, if people just step back, take a deep breath and simplify the scenario in their head and just say, how do you want your movie to end? How do you want this situation to end? Because like Coach A said, we're all going to be down here, right? There's going to be a bad call. We're going to have a late hit. We're going to get hit in the back. We're all going to be face down, but your name means something. And everything that happens in the white lines is going to happen in the world. So write your own script. And so I truly believe that when things get hard, whether you have addiction problems, whether you're searching for forgiveness, whether you're, searching for something in your soul, just close your eyes and write your ending. And then when you write your ending, just open your eyes and go get it. It's that simple. Go get it. And so, I wanted to jump in the crowd. I've always wanted to do that. And in my mind, I was never going to play again. And so I'm like, dude, I got to make this snap. Dave's got to make this kick because I'm never going to get a chance to, do the leap. Now, for me, the funny part about that is the only clip that I've ever had in my entire career playing football was me jumping it was on CNN, like World News, was me jumping in the crowd at Lincoln Financial. And the irony of that whole thing is I didn't make it. Like, as I approached the wall, I definitely underestimated how high that wall was. And like,
It's
I
very
jumped and
high.
I was hanging and my feet were like this, right? And so they actually kind of grabbed me and I was able to put a cleat in the wall and kind of like they pulled me up. And sure enough, I jumped into section 107.
Love it, love it. So, as you're talking about flipping the script and you're your own hero, your script got flipped when you got traded to the Saints. Your whole life then shifted. Why don't you go into a little bit of detail what happened and how you found out about what was going to change your life?
This is a little bit bigger story than just that because it sets the tone of the core belief of people and what they believe in and what they feel in their soul. So when my mom died and she had a jewelry box, and inside the jewelry box there were two chains and a necklace, and she was going to give the two chains to my brother and I, and the necklace to my sister when we turned 18. And so obviously that didn't happen. And so I got that chain early on, and I wore it. And so I moved down to Southern California. I was about 14 years old. I go to Huntington Beach. I jump in the ocean. I come out, the chain's gone. So I was devastated. I was completely devastated. To me, that was the one thing that I held dear. It's the one thing that connected me and my mom. And it was super painful. So I would go back and look for it. And I kid you not, I had like $3 or $4 and I gave it to that old man on the beach with the metal detector and the Speedo. I'm like, yo, dude, find this chain. And he's like, he didn't find it. And so I specifically remember like it was yesterday, like, okay, there's people playing volleyball. They don't care. There's people walking their dog. They don't care. There's people surfing. Like nobody cares about what my problem is. Right. And I remember that the story I tell myself can change everything, right? The narrative that I give, the meaning that I give this is going to change everything. And I remember looking in the sky going, oh my gosh, I get it. Like that necklace was never for me. It was never meant for me to have. And I told myself that my job was to bring that chain back to Orange County where my mom grew up and to jump in the ocean. And the necklace was meant to live in the ocean because my mom wanted to travel the world. And so the story I told myself is that a dolphin got it and it took it over to a whale, and a whale took it to Hawaii. And then a sea turtle took it to Australia. And then it went over to Thailand, and that this chain had been all over the world. And so now through that, my mom got to see the world. And so what it did for me too, is it also meant that I don't need to go to Seattle and go to a cemetery to see my mom. Now I know that my mom lives in the ocean. And all I did is I just redefined that moment and what it meant to me. There's a movie called Big Fish, which is a father-son relationship movie. And the father kind of embellishes these stories, and the father's dying and the kid just wants the dad to tell the truth. And at the end of the movie, though the stories might have been romanticized, they were really true, right? I live that way. And so here's what happens. I get traded, right? So the Eagles come to me, and I have the most consecutive games played. I come back from the wrist injury. I'm Mr. Eagle. I think I'm pretty good. And so what happens is I go into the preseason and I'm not playing, and I'm pissed. And so then all of a sudden there's a game and they're like, Jon, you're going to, sit this half out. I'm like, okay. Then we go into practice. Are you ready for this? And now I'm like with the twos. So now I'm pissed. So now all of a sudden I like barely playing a game. And now I'm like not even taking the 2 reps. I'm like with the 3s. And I'm like, dude, what is going on? This is, no, this ain't happening. So then Howie Roseman comes to me and says, hey, basically the team would like to trade you. And I remember Howie looking at me thinking I was going to be upset. And I first kind of go, okay, the writing was kind of on the wall. Dave was trying to push me out. Okay, Dave Phipp. And I go, okay. And I looked at him and I go, what? Tell me one thing. Has there ever been a long snapper traded for? And Howie looked at me and goes, you know what, Dorenbos? I don't think so. I go, okay, well, if you guys are doing this is great news. I go, Howie, when I was in my prime as a finely tuned specimen at the fine age of 22, I wasn't even worth a draft pick. So you're telling me now at 37 years old, there's a team that's willing to give a draft pick for me? This is great news. Trade me. Let me be the first long snapper ever in the history of the NFL to be traded for. And it is what it is. But it comes to this, right? Whether we agree with the move, it was happening. So you have a choice. This is the decision that Coach A was talking about. you can all of a sudden stand up, make excuses, and be angry and bitter, because when you get rejected, right, when you get told that you're not going to be a part of this anymore, the ego gets hit. Or you can stand up and make a decision, live in vision, not in circumstance, and tell yourself, you know what, this is just my path. Thank you for 11 of the greatest years of my life. But I'll tell you what, you know what I learned in my first divorce? I am never begging anybody to hang out with me. I don't care who you are. I will never beg anybody to hang out with me. So basically, if this is you telling me that you're done with me, I'm out. I'm not going to sit here and beg you to keep me. And so they trade me. All right. So now I go to New Orleans, right? Which the first thing I thought of is I was doing a ton with Ellen DeGeneres. So I was like, okay, this is Ellen's favorite team, all black uniforms, which is slimming for a chubby white guy. Indoor stadium, 13 games indoors. This is perfect. Oh, and I'm going to get a 3-year extension for almost $4 million, more money than I'd ever seen in my life. Dude, this is a home run, right? And they were really excited to have me. And now here we go. You ready for this? Just like Bob Stoll, right? Here's Bob Stoll, the AD that told Andy Reid I'm his guy. Well, what happened is the special teams coach was Brad Banta. Now, Brad Banta wanted to play, I think it was 11 years or 10 years. He wanted to play 10 years in the NFL, or 11 years, whatever it was. And so I was in Buffalo, and he was at home all year. And he basically told his wife, hey, if I don't get picked up this week, because you need 3 games to play a season, if I don't get picked up this week, I'll probably never get it. And so what happens is this guy right here tears his ACL, and the Buffalo Bills hire Brad Banta, and he got his 11th year. And he came in, filled in, and I met him. Now, years later, he's the special teams coach for the Saints. And he might have got word that, the Eagles were going to get rid of one of us. And he heard, and I did an interview and all that I wanted 15. And so Brad called me. And when I got to New Orleans, he goes, hey, man, you gave me 11. I'm going to give you 15. And I just was like, oh, my gosh, like, you never know who you're going to meet, right? All right, so I play in a preseason game. Awesome. Killing it. This is amazing. Having fun. Drew Brees and the Saints, just new energy, new vibe. I have to reprove myself. And so the next day, the doctor comes in town, the orthopedic, and it's going to be a breeze, right? Let's do your physical. Let's make the trade official. And so they put the stethoscope on my chest, on my back, test the lungs and the heart. And he goes, ooh.
That's never a good thing when a doctor goes, ooh.
Yeah, right.
Wait,
a doctor
time
out, doc. Wait a minute. That's not what we want to hear. Go ahead.
But, and Dave, you've been in this situation. We're invincible, right? Like, you're not thinking it's career ending. You're just thinking, dude, put me on a blood thinner. Like, you're not thinking open heart surgery. So let's go down to the hospital. So I go down to the hospital. I get my echocardiogram. I go back. And sure enough, I'm getting ready for practice. My phone rings. I answer it. And it's, hey, John, this is the cardiologist and the surgeon here at the Louisiana hospital. Are you sitting down? No. Why don't you sit down? Okay. And I'll never forget this, dude. Word for word. This is what he said. We don't know how to tell you this, so we're just going to say it. You're never playing football ever again. Huh? You're going to be in emergency open heart surgery probably in the next 48, to 72 hours. Huh? The results from your echo weren't what we expected. Try not to walk fast. Try not to drink caffeine. Try not to laugh. Try not to sneeze. Try not to cough. We just want you to sit there. The trainers are on their way. We're going to bring you back down here for some more tests and get more answers. But you have a condition that's serious. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Click. So now I'm in that moment of wow. Okay. I get bitter. I get angry. I get frustrated. I get upset, right? Because this is not how my career's about to end. Like, my wife and I were so excited to be in New Orleans. And I kid you not, man, Thomas Morstead was there and Will Lutz. And then Drew Brees walks by. And I see the name Brees, Brees. And I close my eyes and I see Coach A. And then all of a sudden I remember the name on the back. And then I remember a guy named Joe Santoliquito, who was a reporter in Philadelphia. When I was there, he said, hey, John, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah. He goes, man, your mom's best friend sang Wind Beneath My Wings at her funeral, right? This was in 2006. I said, yeah. He goes, oh, that's pretty cool. I go, yeah, man, thanks. All right, I got to go. He goes, no, you don't get it. You bounced around. I know your story. Well, now you're an eagle. So if you ever struggle, open your wings and just let the wind take you. And may the wind forever be beneath your wings as an eagle. And I just was like, whoa, like that hit me. And I remember that. And so that now it comes to the story we tell ourselves. I remember the necklace. And now you got to reassign meaning to the situation you're in to find the positive. And I go, I get it. So the story I told myself is my mom traded me to New Orleans to have my life saved by a saint. And instead of you got to stop and smell the roses, my mom basically said, hey, you got to step out of the wind and catch a breeze. And Drew Brees was my breeze. And that's the story I told myself. And then you know what else I thought of? I thought about how mad I was at the Eagles for not playing me in the preseason. I thought about how frustrated I was getting for not getting practice reps and all this. And now check this out. That was literally the best thing that could possibly happen to me because all they were doing was buying me time. Had I got hit in the chest really, really hard, boom, and that I had what's called an aneurysm. If that thing ruptures, you're dead before you hit the ground. So really, as frustrated and upset as I was at Coach Fitt for not playing me, he arguably was part of the team that saved my life, and we didn't even realize it. And it just kind of made me realize that, hey, sometimes things happen that we don't agree with. Sometimes things happen that make us upset in the moment. Well, it might be the best thing that ever happened to you. In fact, I go to Ellen DeGeneres 8 weeks after surgery. We're going to talk about it. And across the hall in the green room is Garth Brooks. He knocks on my door. Him and I became friends back in 2004 or whatever. And he goes, hey, man, one of your favorite songs when I met you is Unanswered Prayers. Funny how life works its way out, man. So cheers to Unanswered Prayers. And I'm glad you're alive, baby. And we did a shot of Diet Coke. And that was that, man. So you never know. Sometimes things that you think you have a plan and you think you know which way life's going to take you. And sometimes the things that you least expect end up being the best thing that ever happened to you.
Jon, I remember talking to you when you got traded, kind of excited about how that was all kind of going down and somebody really wanted you. And I agree with you. And I'm trying to be quiet so you can just tell because, again, I think your story is so riveting. But when you kind of go through this and you needed that recovery, I know you had thousands of people reaching out to you because of those people that you have touched in many ways when you were going through your recovery. And I was very fortunate to see you somewhat soon after that. When I got put into the Eagles Hall of Fame, you were able to come, and it was one of your first times back. And I remember just when they announced that you were there, the Eagles fans just went crazy for you. And again, it's a tribute to who you are and the adversity that you've gone through and the stories. I was going to go into it a little. We've been talking so long. It's so good. I hate to hold you up with this, but your book, and I got the audio version of your book on purpose because I know you narrated it. So hearing Dorney speak to me and hearing some of these stories that I had known, but then when you actually just put it together collectively, it's such an inspiring read. And I would actually hold up your book right now, but my mom has your book because I have passed it on to others because we bought the physical and I also have the audio version of it. But as you were saying, you kind of have this mindset of the superhero that you are in whatever movie. Going forward, now I know your football's over. And prior to being traded to the Saints, you got onto America's Got Talent. Now, again, nothing that Jon Dorenbos that he does is normal. All right, you don't do it in the normal sense of like, hey, I've got this opportunity. I'm going to get on a commercial flight and fly back and forth. Everything's played out. How did you work the scheduling of AGT and the Eagles?
Well, this is a crazy story. So basically, a buddy of mine calls me. It's at the time it was the off season. We're like in March, right? Hey, Jon, you should do America's Got Talent. I'm like, nah, I'm good, dude. He's like, no, you should really do it. Like, I think you do well. Like, I think it's a good format for what you do. Nah, I'm good. So he calls me back and goes, hey, I signed you up. Like, you're doing it. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And at the time, my goal was, okay, let me go on once or twice. Let me get Simon to say a few good things. And then I'll either opt out or get voted off, and hopefully I can just use some for some promo for my speaking career. So I go do it, and I get on to the next round. Now, meanwhile, this is not live, so all this is pre-recorded. Eagles don't know I'm doing it. So now round 2 comes. Now it's April. I still haven't reported for off season, so now I'm going to go do it. I remember this is so great. Like, I'm sitting in the wing. I'm about to go on, and the magician that went on before me, like, birds are going everywhere, and I just remember he disappeared. He went up in the air. These huge wings came out like a movie. He disappears, and then like a little bird flies away. Dude, I look at my wife and I go, hey, Annalise, did that guy literally just disappear in midair and turn into a bird and fly away? Like, what just happened? Like, what am I doing here? I was holding a notepad, a jumbo deck, and a pen. I'm like, I think I picked the wrong trick, right? And my wife goes, hey, just be you. You're good. I go, all right, whatever. So I go out there. Now, this is the episode that I'm going to opt out at because I got to go to training camp. So sure enough, I get the gold buzzer, which means the confetti flies. I'm going straight to the live show. I'm walking to the back of the theater. Okay. I kid you not. Okay. Very similar to my life. I wish I would have taken a second to enjoy the moment, but I literally turn around, I scratch my face, and I say, oh, what am I going to tell the Eagles? And what am I going to do? Because I was opting out. And if I opt out now, this will never air. This never happened. This is the greatest promo material ever. Like, okay, whatever. Let's just see how this goes. I'm just going to go with it. So now I find out that my Golden Buzzer episode isn't airing till the end of July. I'm like, perfect. It's right by training camp. I wish this would have aired like in June or something, because then it would have aired. I get the credit, and then I would have opted out, right? So now Eagles don't know I've done the show, right? So now all of a sudden this thing airs. I get the gold buzzer, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, so I show up to training camp, and they're like, Jon, why didn't you tell us? I'm like, well, training camp, it is what it is. It's kind of a dead end road, It just aired. So I still don't know how this is playing out. NBC thinks that I told the Eagles, and they're like, we can't wait to call the Eagles and tell them that we're so happy that they excused you from training camp, right? So I'm like, oh yeah, okay, let's see how that phone call goes. And then I'm telling you, man, it was Don Smolinski and Frank Gumieni and Jeff Lurie and Howie. They all basically were like, yo, man, Magic's been a part of your life forever. Like, how do we support this? How can we make this happen? Now, this was the greatest line. That's like it was like a dig that was so not a dig that I laughed so hard when Jeff Lurie said this, because he meant it as a compliment, but he's like, I mean, I don't understand why you can't do this. I mean, it's not like you're the quarterback or a receiver. It's not like basically it was like, it's not like you're an athlete. Like, it's not like you need to be here, right? Like, just snap the ball and like, just go, Magic Boy, right? It was awesome. And so they allowed it. Now, here is where I pride myself. Okay. I would do a lot of flights, some private, some commercial. My training camp schedule was 8 a.m. to like 5. Okay. And then I would leave the facility at 5 out of Philadelphia and get to the airport and either take the 6:15 American, or I was fortunate enough to fly private sometimes. I would go to California. I would land. I would get like 2 hours. And then I could get either a rehearsal, a camera block, a B-roll, or something to do. But then I had to be back on the plane to get in the air by 10:15, to land by 7:15, to get over to the facility by 8 to do my 8 to 5. So I was going Philly to LA, sometimes multiple days a week. And I don't really think the team knew about that one, but it's unbelievable.
How many times do you think you actually did that during training camp?
6 or 7.
That's crazy. That's crazy. It's crazy.
Hey, but think about that. 6 or 7 in like what, an 18-day span, right? Because training camp really is what, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah, but so you're flying out. You've been up since say 6 o'clock. You fly out. You get there, then you work, and then you take up and fly back. But you can sleep on anyway.
Dave knows me, man. I can sleep anywhere, man. Right now, honestly, if I wasn't talking, I'd be like this. I could sleep anywhere.
And the reason, I'm going to take a little side note. And the reason why I know this is because every game, we would go in and Sav and I, whatever, we kind of just Sav-Rocka, put towels over our face.
Stop. You got to back up. The kickers and punters would do pregame before everybody else. And then we would then go back in the locker room while the rest of the team occupied the field. So we would have, what would you call it? Like 15 minutes
yeah, something like that.
To ourselves in the locker room. Okay, go.
And so there would be times where like, okay, the team's coming back in, and I'd walk over to give you a little kick, and Jon's out. I mean, out completely. And but then again, that just shows you, like you've already stated, like you're into it, but you can separate what you need to be doing and actually taking care of Johnny D as well.
Look, man, like I didn't watch an NFL game really until my first NFL game, and like they're long. So I was like, man, I better take a little nap here, because I gotta get going here for the next 4.5 hours, So I would take a little cat nap.
Or at halftime when we're starving because we haven't eaten, and we'd go back into the equipment room because they always had catered food back there and snag some food.
No, catered food. No, they had hot dogs, chicken wings. I'd crush those things at halftime. Hey, here's a good thing that not a lot of people know. They're like, Jon, what do you drink during the game? I would actually, for the last couple of years there, the Eagles would put my own hot chocolate machine behind the bench. And so I would have my own little hot chocolate. I'd sit by the fire and drink my little hot toddy.
and occasionally some really good hot cider too, depending if the games are really cold. So you end up going really far into America's Got Talent, and I know, but I was going to go into, I think you should have won. You had our vote, but who did you lose to?
Yeah, I was the guy that lost to a 12-year-old with a ukulele, killing it. Yeah,
So
but don't feel bad. Don't feel bad, because they then shortly invited me back to the America's Got Talent World Champion Edition, where the top 50 acts in all the world compete. I made the finals, and don't feel bad, because I didn't lose to a 12-year-old with a ukulele. When it came to the AGT World Champions, I placed right behind that 14-year-old with a puppet, killing it.
And the great thing is, again, and I love just talking with you, because you always leave me smiling, happy, and almost tears of laughing so hard. But, when I think about initially what you did with people, I can go back to a story, because, again, people don't realize how giving you are to charities and your time. And I had a foundation, and you would come, you would MC it, you would do auctions for us, but we'd also go to Children's Hospital Philadelphia quite often. It was called CHOP. And there was a time that you and I went in, and you changed a girl's life. And I was able to experience it. And it, to me, just shows who you are as a person. Do you remember that one?
There's two stories that literally tear me up every time, and this is it. Yeah, so we would go room to room, we'd do a trick, try and make a kid smile. These kids are just in the most unbelievable situations, and their parents. Now that I'm a parent, like, I can't imagine seeing my kid. And so we went into this room, and this girl just laid there, like, she didn't crack a smile, she didn't move, she didn't do anything. Right? We'd do a trick, I'd try and make her laugh, like, I literally was pulling it out, right? Just trying to do anything we could. And so next thing you know, you and I leave that room, and as we take a few steps, it was literally like a movie. Like, everything went like, in my mind, everything just went like eerie quiet. And I remember people in front of us stopped, and we both turned around, and the parents stopped, the doctor stopped, and this girl walked out of her room, and she was peeking out of the room. Now, you and I don't know the magnitude of what's going on, right? And then she walked up, and basically, before we went into that room, her parents were like, "Oh my God, she's so sad. This is what she's going through in the hospital, and she's not going to go to her prom, and it's just, just the world's crashing, right?" And so she comes out, and she's sliding her feet, like, so feeble, right? She walks up, and she kind of whispered in my ear, and I remember looking at her, and I said, "You know what? Proms are lame. You know, I think you and I should have your prom dance right here, right now." And I don't know, what was she, like, 13, 14, 15? Well, she had to be in high school.
She was high school, yeah.
Yeah, and so we just kind of like slow danced in, like, the hallway of a hospital, and we were kind of laughing, and all of us were laughing. I look over, her parents are crying, and she then slides her feet back and goes into her room. And I remember that for us, or at least for me at the time, it was just another day, right? Let's just make this kid smile and move on. And all right, we did our job, Dave. We did our job. We did our good deed for the day. And then the doctor and the mom came over and said, if I remember this right, and you might remember it differently, but it'd been months, right? And she didn't talk. She didn't, like, show any signs of communication, no signs of wanting to live. She hadn't gotten out of her bed for quite some time. And when she got up, and I remember her voice was so weak, just the fact that she actually got up and showed signs of life, and that we danced, her mom was just like, lost it. And that's I think that was a moment where I just sat back and went, wow, like, wow, that was cool.
And that's because the platform that we were fortunate to be a part of, and some people utilize it for selfish gains, but again, you change rooms when you come into it. And I have one little small little area to kind of go to here is, I mean, you're a father now, and I mean, you're trying to bring your daughter up into a world that was different than the world you grew up in after 12 years of age. And I just know who you are, and from reading your book and from talking to you and being friends with you for years now, and I can't believe, you posted, and we were talking about this the other day, that it's been 10 years since we were teammates. And it doesn't seem like that. It seems like it was just yesterday. But this year has changed so much. COVID has changed. I mean, you were doing shows across the country. You were about to do, I believe, a big event across the country with Live Nation. And you've had to, for better words, drop back and punt. But you said to me, it's been amazing because you're now home and you're able to spend so much time with your daughter. Can you just kind of go into this new chapter of where you are? Obviously, football's over. The great stuff you've done with AGT. I mean, might be on there occasionally, but you're a world-renowned speaker, and it's so evident in the way we're communicating today in your story. I'm just letting you just go. I've been fortunate to even see you do this in your post-football career as well, and you've done an incredible job. Going through this year with COVID and everything, your own health issues to be able to deal with, but then raising a daughter this way, just kind of go with what's happening currently with you with all that.
Yeah, so we're going to go back to like that March. It was March before this whole quarantine hit, right? So I was getting ready. I was John Boyd's predecessor in a Varsity Blues project. It was going to be a huge break, an acting role. I had a huge role in this. That obviously got postponed / canceled. Who knows if it'll happen. I had multiple shows. I had an MGM contract. We were going through all the MGM properties around the country. The speaking career was what I had always imagined I wanted it to be. I was on the platform that I wanted to be on, and all of a sudden everything crashes. Right, everything quarantine hits. Everything gets postponed, canceled, and again, it comes back to Coach A. Comes back to being face down, comes back to your name, comes back to changing the narrative of why this is happening. It comes down to when I got traded, instead of being angry, find a positive, because if this is happening, whether you want it to or not, the quicker we come to terms with our reality, then the quicker we can see the positive. And sure enough, there is nothing that I wouldn't trade for the time that I've been able to spend. I mean, I've got to spend every single day with my daughter and my wife, at a time when I was going to be on the road a lot, right? And I probably would have gotten too wrapped up in my career and take my family on the road, and just would have been hectic. So instead, this was a great reminder to slow down, right? This is a great reminder that, hey, sometimes we got to step out of the wind and catch a breeze. And, I'm not taking back what COVID's done. I have a heart condition. I have a valve issue. Nobody that has what I have had COVID, so we don't know. So we're extremely careful. We don't leave the house much. I mean, we're quarantined probably more so than most of the country. But we wake up every day to see the bright side. I wake up every day to be thankful to be alive. I wake up every day to see my little girl smile and to hang out. And, we got to make the best of every situation that we're in, and realize that this too will pass, and realize that this too is just another act in the movie. So how are we going to write it? Where is this going to go? When the quarantine's done, where are we going to be? Find out where it is and just go there. Write yourself that script and get to where you want to get to.
Speaking of writing, first off, this is the last, thank you, for your time. And I want to do kind of a fire session real quick with you as we are finishing up, and this time with Kicking It with Dave Akers or Johnny Deep. But we had a couple of questions on social media yesterday, and Kristen asked this: what is your most memorable moment of your career?
I got a couple. But earlier, this will tie into the conversation. Two things happened because of my heart surgery, which is totally career related. Okay, so I'm going to go a different direction. There's an actual physical one play that is by far my favorite play in my career. But here's what happens: I'm in the hospital, and I get a ton of emails and tweets and all this stuff, and my puts one in front of me, and all of a sudden she hits play, and it's there's a few things that get me choked up. This is one of them. And it's a bunch of people in a sports bar, and they all have signs. And they're saying, "Get well soon, Jon, go Birds." And they're all chanting, the whole bar's chanting, right? I'm like, oh my gosh. Then the other one is I'm out of heart surgery. And for a while, it was really hard for us to go anywhere, because we would just get mobbed by people wanting to know if we were okay. And I was on 21 pills. I was super weak. I had to squeeze this pillow. I was freezing cold, and just, I wasn't in the mind of wanting to talk. I was very insecure, and just a lot of things were going through my head. And so one particular moment, we go to bar a Mies in the Navy Yard. We have to get out of the condo, and we're sitting there, and we're sitting on the patio, and nobody's bothering us. Nobody, which is great, right? My wife, we're just thankful. We're eating. And when we get up to leave, I grab my little pillow that you have to squeeze, because if you cough, you have to equalize the pressure and squeeze so your sternum doesn't pop open, right? And then I'm sliding my feet, and then we get to the parking lot, and all of a sudden we turn around. One guy stands up, gives me the slow clap, right? I mean, if there's a scene in any sports movie that just hits people, it's the players laying the jersey down for Rudy, right? It's a slow clap that you get. It's kind of like the ultimate sign of respect for the time you've served. It's the greater version of the owner saying, there's nobody else we'd rather have here than you. And then I turn around, I look, I get choked up. My wife looks at me, and then boom, 2 people are standing, then 3, then 4, then everybody on the patio, and then the people walked outside, and they all gave me the slow clap as I walked away. And I think if I could put my entire career in Philly into that right there, when you do things, you don't necessarily do it for accolades and acknowledgement, but when you live a life and you just get respect from your teammates and from a city, man. And then we got in the car, we drove away, and when you drive out of the Navy Yard, like, it's a little bit of a drive, right? And they stood up the whole time. And then I put my hand out the window, and they went nuts, and we drove away. And when I remember Philly, I remember the slow clap, man. So if you want to ask me what my favorite moment of my career was, it was every decision I ever made for the feeling that Philly gave me when I left.
Dude,
that's it.
That honestly, that's special. And I know what you're feeling. It really is. Let's do a real quick thing here. What's your favorite magic trick?
I mean, hey, you take somebody's watch. I'm going to go back to Jim Johnson. But hold on. This is so great. That's such a great answer for this reason, right? Because I get asked this. You can go back and you can watch whatever. I say this answer. It's not so much the trick as it is the moment that it creates, right? And so I've always loved the watch steal. And in this podcast, what did we talk about? We talked about Jim Johnson, and it was me taking him out of that moment of just the focus and the stress and just creating a moment, right? It's the trick that creates the moment of just an escape to just relax and enjoy each other's presence, enjoy the moment, enjoy each other as people, and to laugh and to relax. And then all of a sudden it's an escape. So ironically, I love watch steals. I've always loved the art of entertainment pickpocketing, and sure enough, it created that moment for Coach Jim Johnson.
Awesome. That was Skylar asking you that. Let's see. First off, I know the answer is, was Akers the best kicker you ever snapped for? I mean,
actually, I probably never have given you publicly. Well, I have. I've always given you credit. You made me so much better in every way, because you were probably the first kicker, and I mean this with all due respect, that was so demanding perfection from yourself and the people around you. And I was never as good as I wished I was. I wish I could have snapped to you as good as I was at the end of my career. I wish I was that player. I just wasn't at the time. But your work ethic, your search for perfection, your ability to just be anal and attention to detail, you had a great impact on my career. And I will say that because of all those reasons, not just the accolades, but who you were as a pro, for sure.
Well, I was kind of saying that tongue in cheek. Now you're going to make me cry.
If you don't count Keith Robinson, if you don't count Nathan Colano, who's our high school kicker, if you don't count Baronis, if you don't count Craig Hendrick, if you don't count Bryce Benecos, and if you don't count all those other guys that I kicked with, if you don't count Ryan Lindell, so take all those guys out, you're the best kicker I've ever had.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And this, I think this last one comes to a question for both of us here, and the last one was from George, and this is from Sally. What do you both miss most about playing in the NFL? And I'm going to go first, and I'm going to finish it up with you. For me, it's the locker room. Obviously, we miss the paychecks, but it's the locker room. This type of bantering, of camaraderie, you can't find anywhere else, in my opinion. That for me, I've searched for it a little bit. The closest little community I've had is a little bit into the ski community, but there's just something about the locker room in the NFL, college, high school that you can't replicate, in my opinion. And I wish that people could experience it. But guys like yourself have given me memories of a lifetime. Some of the stuff we've talked about today that I think about and internally laugh sometimes, to the point of where you just wish that you could go back for the moment. Obviously the game's great or whatever, but it's the locker room that changed my life.
I got two moments like that, right? Where you train so hard for something, and then you go and you do something that everybody just thinks is so routine and a gimme, and they don't really realize how hard it is to make a PAT. And then you just get that right there. Hey, good job, man. Hey, let's go. I love that. The head nod, right? The respect of your teammates. I miss that. I also miss everything you said, but there's something about just being a part of something cool. You know, there's something about, for me, I kid you not, I wanted to play football. I wanted to run out of a crowd in front of 100,000 people. My first game was against Oklahoma, 98,612. I ran out, man, a couple hundred short. And then the first time I got to run out in front of 100,000 people was against Dallas in their new stadium. And I remember going, okay, this is cool. I kind of envision you guys all cheering for me, but I'll take 105,000 boos. Thank you. And I did it. But, to be a part of like that, right? To pull up. And for me, my buddy Steve Carlson is my favorite musician. He's got a song called Rocking Chair. And it's a song about just, when it was all said and done, the only thing he wanted from his grandpa was his rocking chair, because keep that rocking chair, just keep it rock on, may it rock on all night, right? And when my soul floats away, God takes my breath away, but just leave that rocking chair there to rock on. And I would play that song as we would drive into every game, home or away. I'd play that song, pulling up to the stadium and seeing the lights and the fans and the father and son playing catch. Oh, this is really, and I post this all the time. All right, sorry to elongate this story, but this is deep right here. 12 years old, I lose my parents. Right? So the people, I was a huge Seattle Mariners fan. People would donate tickets, and my school teacher would take me, or my foster parents would take me. And I would sit in the nosebleeds, and it was the game that King Griffey Jr. and Jay Buhner were going to be like, Dorenbos, come on down here. Come play catch with us, dude. I got to warm up before the sixth inning. And I would run down there and play catch with them. Never happened. So what do? I found a kid in pregame. I found a kid all the time. And I'm so thankful that over time, these pictures, and as this story came out, pictures came up, right? Oh my God, this is you playing catch with my kid. Before every game or practice or any chance I had an opportunity, I would pick a kid and play catch with them. And it was my moment to just realize how thankful I was to be there. And I was going to be everything I didn't have. And it was my moment to be King Griffey Jr. And it was my moment to play catch with my 12-year-old self. I miss that. If anything, I miss sharing the NFL with people that didn't get to experience it. That's what I miss.
It's funny, you played the catch, and people used to talk about me that I would go out before when we'd be at training camp, and I'd go sign a ton of autographs prior and afterwards. They're like, man, you always come out here. It goes back to the only pro game I went to ever as a kid was the Reds. And they had a guy named Mario DeSoto who was a player who was coming up. And I was ready with my ball to get the signature, and I was like the last guy that didn't get anything, right? So I didn't get the signature. So when I made it, I was like, I'm going to be that guy that will sign for everybody. Now, obviously, we can't get to everybody. That's just life. But ultimately, just like you wanted to play that catch for somebody who couldn't be a part of, or that kid. Here it is. Here's that signature. And it's great to be able to, I still get people sending me, this is me wearing your jersey. And it was back in 2000. And the kid, is in his mid-20s now. And you're like, oh my gosh. And he was a little kid. And it just takes you back. The NFL stands for not for long. And even though you and I were able to play for several years, it seems like yesterday that we were starting. And now you're this father. I'm a father of 3 myself. I have a kid that's in college and who's just now coming back for Christmas break. That life goes so quickly. And again, I want to thank you for coming on here today because of what you do for people's lives. And what you're doing now with your speaking, you need to go to JonDorenbos.com and you need to hire this guy because he's incredible. You need to get his book, Life is Magic. It is life-changing. You are magic, Jon, and every day that you inspire people, You change lives. And I know your mother is just extremely, extremely proud of you, man. And I'm blessed to have you as a friend. I love you, brother, and just loved all the amount of time and memories and laughs that we've had together, even if it was in my underwear.
Well, you call this Kicking It with Dave Akers. I'd like to think that it's a snap with Jon Dorenbos.
Touche.
It's like Ron Burgundy. Stay classy, San Diego.
Stay classy.
Hey, it's a snap. Kicking It with David Akers. It's a snap with Jon Dorenbos.
We're going to go out for a little jog later on. Silent J.
Thank you, brother.
Hey, man.
Really
I'm a
do
big fan,
appreciate
dude.
you.
Love you. Thanks,
Love
man.
it.
You too.
Thanks so much. I didn't really expect it to be this long, but when you're so daggone good.
Oh my gosh, you guys! Please tell me that I haven't had that flutter in my throat the whole time. You guys
A
hear
little
it?
bit, just a little bit.
Okay. Excuse me.
Never gets
Kicking
old.
it, snapping it. Hey, life's a snap with Jon Dorenbos.
Love it.